5,000 soldiers marched into the fog and never came back. Not one body, not one sword, not one piece of armor ever recovered. An entire Roman legion, 5,000 of the most disciplined fighting men on earth, simply ceased to exist. No battle record, no grave, no explanation, just silence. And Rome, the empire that documented everything, every tax, every road, every slave auction, wrote almost nothing about what happened to them. Why? It's 117 AD. The Roman Empire is at its absolute peak. It stretches from the deserts of North Africa to the frozen highlands of Scotland. Roman roads connect every corner of the known world. Roman law governs millions of people who have never even seen Rome. And somewhere in the wild, rain-soaked hills of northern Britain, the 9th Legion, Legio 9 Hispana, is marching north. They are not a new unit. These men have history, deep, brutal history. The 9th fought in the invasion of Britain under Emperor Claudius in 43 AD. They crushed the revolt of Queen Boudicca. They built the fortress city of Eboracum, what we now call York. For over 70 years, they had been the iron fist Rome kept pressed against the throat of northern Britain. They were experienced, battle-hardened, feared, and then they walked north into Caledonia, into what is now Scotland, and the record goes dark. No dispatch, no final battle report, no commander's account, nothing. To understand what probably happened to them, you need to understand where they were going. North of Hadrian's Wall, which Rome hadn't even finished building yet, was a different world entirely. The Romans had a name for it. They called it Caledonia. And unlike the rest of Britain, which Rome had spent decades slowly grinding into submission, Caledonia refused to bend. The people there were the Caledonians, later called the Picts. Rome's own historians described them in terms that bordered on fear: tall, red-haired, ferocious, fighting naked in the cold. Tacitus wrote that they had fire in their eyes. These were not farmers who had picked up spears. These were warriors who had grown up in one of the harshest landscapes in Europe, and they knew the terrain. Every hill, every bog, every narrow valley where 5,000 men in formation suddenly become a confused, panicking crowd. The 9th Legion was marching into a trap. They just didn't know it yet. Picture what that march looked like. 5,000 men, full armor, each man carrying close to 40 kilograms of equipment, weapons, rations, entrenching tools, moving in column through terrain that Roman sandals were never designed for. Vetrosh, beat bulk, narrow paths that wound between hills so steep the men at the back couldn't see the men at the front. The further north they marched, the quieter it got. No villages, no traders, no scouts returning with good news. Just wind, gray sky, and the feeling, the slow, creeping certainty that something was watching them. Roman military doctrine was built for open ground. 4 flat fields where formations held, where the testudo shield wall locked together like a machine, where cavalry could sweep the flanks and the enemy could be seen coming from a mile away. Caledonia was none of those things. It was a place specifically designed by geography to kill Roman soldiers. And the Caledonians had been preparing for this moment for years. Here is what the soldiers of the 9th would have felt in those final days. Wet, constantly, miserably wet. Roman wool tunics soaked through within an hour. Leather armor began to rot. Boots disintegrated on the boggy ground. The temperature dropped at night to levels that men raised in Spain and North Africa had never experienced. Food was running low. Supply lines stretched thin. The further north they went, the longer it took for resupply wagons to reach them, if they reached them at all. Sleep was shallow and frightened. Every man in every tent knew they were deep in enemy territory with no clear objective, no reliable intelligence, and no easy route of retreat. The centurions kept order. That was their job. But even the most disciplined century feels fear when the fog rolls in and the scouts don't come back. And one morning, historians argue about exactly when it didn't come back. What likely happened next is pieced together from archaeology, from scattered Roman references, and from the logic of guerrilla warfare. The Caledonians didn't fight like Romans. They had watched Roman legions for decades. They knew exactly what a Roman formation could do, and they knew what it couldn't do. So they didn't charge across an open field. They didn't line up and give the ninth a fair fight. They waited. They let the legion march deep into unfamiliar territory, far from reinforcement, deep into the hills. And then, probably at dawn, probably in fog, probably in a narrow valley where the Roman column was stretched thin and couldn't form up properly, they hit them, not from one direction, from everywhere. Thousands of screaming warriors pouring down from hills the Romans couldn't even see clearly. No warning, no time to lock shields, no time for formation, just chaos and iron and the sound of men dying before they understand what's happening. A Roman legion caught in the wrong terrain, ambushed, cut off. That is not an unbeatable force. That is 5,000 men trying to fight in the dark. And they lost. Now here's where it gets even stranger. Rome didn't send a rescue mission, didn't launch a massive retaliatory campaign to avenge the ninth, didn't even officially record the loss in the way you'd expect for the destruction of an entire legion. Why? Because admitting you lost a full legion was a catastrophic propaganda problem. Rome had done it before. In 9 AD, 3 full legions were destroyed in the Teutoburg forest in Germany, the 17, 18, and 19. Augustus Caesar was so devastated that witnesses reported him wandering his palace at night, banging his head against the walls, screaming, "Varus, give me back my legions." Those 3 legion numbers were never used again. Rome retired them out of shame. The ninth's disappearance was handled differently, more quietly. The legions simply stopped appearing in records. No monument, no official acknowledgement of destruction. The empire quietly looked away. When you're Rome, when your entire power rests on the myth of invincibility, you don't announce that 5,000 of your best soldiers were swallowed by a Scottish hillside. You just pretend it didn't happen. No other vanished army in history has been buried in silence quite like this. When Crassus lost his legions at Carrhae against the Parthians in 53 BC, Rome raged publicly. Poets wrote about it. Politicians debated it for decades. The Lost Eagle standards became a national obsession that lasted 33 years until Augustus finally recovered them diplomatically. When Varus lost his 3 legions in Germany, the grief was open, raw, empire-wide. But the ninth? Silence. Institutional silence. The kind of silence that only happens when someone powerful decides the truth is too dangerous to say out loud. That silence is almost more chilling than the disappearance itself, because it means Rome knew. Rome knew exactly what happened, and Rome decided that some truths were better buried in the Scottish hills alongside the men who died there. So here is the answer to the question that opened this video. The Ninth Legion didn't vanish because of magic or mystery or some supernatural force that the ancient world couldn't explain. They vanished because an empire built on the myth of total control met a landscape and a people it could not control. And when a machine failed, when a system that had never broken finally broke, the empire did what empires always do. It erased the evidence. 5,000 men, gone. Not because Rome was weak, but because Rome was too proud to be honest about where its power ended. The fog didn't take the Ninth Legion. Pride did. Here is what I want you to sit with. Every great power in history has had a place where it stopped, a line where its strength ran out, and something unconquerable began. For Rome, that line ran through the Scottish Highlands. So the question is this: what does it say about a civilization? Not when it wins, but when it loses and then pretends it never happened. And is Rome the only empire that ever did that? Think about it. Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story got under your skin, wait until you hear about the Roman general who marched his army off the edge of the known world and was never heard from again. That video is coming next. See you there,